All right, good afternoon. Welcome, everyone, to meeting number 13 of the Standing Committee on Judiciary. I believe we've got a quorum, but if you don't mind, Mr. Secretary, let's double check.
Senator Berg, Senator Kerr, Senator Neal, Senator Schickel, Senator Schroeder, President Stivers, Senator Turner, Senator West, Senator Wheeler, Senator Carroll, Chairman Westerfield.
Here. Seeing that we have a quorum and we're authorized to do business, I call House Bill 290 up, our only bill on the agenda, an act relating to student discipline at public post-secondary education institutions, sponsored by our friend Representative Kim Banta. If you don't mind, introduce yourselves or have your guests introduce themselves for the record, and you have the floor, Representative.
Kim Banta, District 63. Make sure your mic's on.
Julia Manningly, I'm a student at the University of Louisville.
Liam Gallagher, student at the University of Louisville.
My bill has been fully schickelized, so I'm going to go ahead and start. Some of you may have heard it before.
You had my vote, but now...
The purpose of this bill is to establish a minimum procedural requirement for post-secondary discipline proceedings to better protect students' educational interests. The impact is basic due process rights, victim due process rights, robust due process for suspensions 3 days or more, or expulsion or termination of a student's residence in campus housing. Also interesting just is the student discipline report, so that we can track and know who's getting expelled, who's getting suspended. Just good data to have. The student discipline report must also include the number and percentage of disciplinary hearings that resulted in various student outcomes. We did, in working with the universities, move it from every 3 years to every 4 years, and we did that because we wanted it to be a little bit more anonymous. I thought they made a good point that it needed to be a little bit more anonymous. We also moved some dates for them, had to check with the AG, make sure it was okay on reporting dates, but we moved those so that those would be helpful. Truthfully, this version of the bill doesn't look a lot like it did in the beginning, because I have met with all the universities and we did everything except got the bill, essentially. So with that, it's basic due rights, presumption of innocence, written notice of charges, access to complete record on the matter, to be present and participate meaningfully in the process, to be represented by counsel at the expense of the student at all phases of the process, and fair and impartial treatment, including the right to an impartial hearing adjudicator. I'm going to stop, and would you like to hear from the students?
If they've got remarks they'd like to share,
Okay.
this is the time.
Thank you, Chairman Westerfield and members of the Judiciary Committee. My name is Liam Gallagher. I'm a student at the University of Louisville, a political science major, and president-elect of the College of Arts and Sciences. I'm here today because I am a product of what a college education can do. A college education allows people to move their family forward in life. It's worked wonders for members of my own family. I fear, though, that a lack of due process in our colleges and universities, this pathway to a better life, is taken away from too many without just cause. My great-grandmother and grandfather on my mom's side were immigrants from Mexico. They made a life for themselves in the coal mines of the Appalachian Mountains. No matter how hard they worked, they never broke through to a higher class. Neither was very educated, but they believed wholeheartedly in an education for my grandfather. He attended West Virginia Tech. As a member of the ROTC to pay for his school, he led a successful career in the United States Air Force and achieved the rank of Lieutenant Colonel Luis Hernandez. My mother, Dr. Tricia Hernandez Gallagher, has worked for over 25 years in special education, becoming the first person in her family to receive her doctorate, over 16 of those years here in Kentucky's public schools. She's worked every day to put food on the table and provide for my brother and me. She's worked every day to be able to put money in our college funds to give us the opportunity that her grandparents were never given. Kathleen and William Gallagher, my grandparents on my dad's side, immigrants from Ireland, two hardworking individuals that never received even a fourth grade education. My grandmother a maid, my grandfather a landscaper. They wanted their children to have what they never had, an education. My dad, a graduate of Westchester University in Philadelphia, he and his brother, the first two college graduates in their family. He worked for many years, putting more money yearly into college funds for both my brother and I. On both sides of my family, you have immigrants that were uneducated and impoverished working to allow their children to become educated. They were sacrificing. My grandfather Lou tells me stories of his mom coming up with ways of making and saving money, selling tortilla and beans to coal miners on their lunch break, seldom throwing out paper towels because she believed they could be used again, not eating herself so that her children could eat. These are the stories of my family, but I'm not the only one who has these stories. At my university, the University of Louisville, the average tuition for 8 semesters of school is $97,392. That is almost 3 entire years of salary for someone making the $36,000 that is the average in the United States. It's not common that the average American family has almost $100,000 to send their child to college. Many families go into excessive amounts of debt to do it. They do this because a college education means more than the piece of paper you get when you graduate. It means a path forward, a path to a better life for so many. This pathway should not be taken away in an instant. It needs to be protected, and House Bill 290 gives us a way to do just that. We're not here asking for a right to college education. We're here asking for the right to protect our education once tuition has been paid in full. I'm here today because of my great-grandparents, because of my grandfathers Lou and Willie, my grandmother Kathleen. I'm here today because of my mom Trish and my dad Patrick. Their stories, their work, their sacrifice for my future should be protected. Thank you.
I'd first like to say thank you to Chairman Massey and all the members of the Judiciary Committee for allowing me to speak today on this matter. Hi, my name is Julia Mattingly. I'm a junior studying rural health at the University of Louisville, where I serve as Speaker of the SGA Senate and President of the University Young Democrats. I'm here to speak today in support of House Bill 290. I support this bill because I believe Kentucky universities putting their students first and ensuring that proper due process rights is long overdue. This became extremely apparent to me this past summer when I was subject to pervasive harassment and defamation by another U of L student. When I had sought out the Dean of Students' office at U of L for help, university attorneys reviewed my case and determined that my allegations did not rise to a violation of the Student Code of Conduct. A representative from the Dean of Students informed me that I could file a formal complaint and receive a conduct hearing. However, they told me I would have to act as my own attorney by collecting affidavits from all those involved and preparing an oral argument to be presented to the board. As an undergraduate rural health major who has absolutely no legal experience, I was shocked at the notion I was to represent myself at the hearing and was not allowed to seek help from legal counsel. Additionally, I was scared to be in the same room as the student who had been harassing me all summer and would have appreciated the ability to have legal counsel speak on my behalf. House Bill 290 addresses this exact issue. This bill requires universities to notify students of their right to be represented by counsel or, if required by Title IX, an advisor at each phase of the investigation process. Allowing students due process should not be a burdensome task for Kentucky universities. Due process for students is a guarantee of fairness, a core tenet of our country and the Commonwealth of Kentucky. This legislation does not hinder a university's ability to hold students accountable for offenses. It simply asks that students are afforded the same due process rights on campus as they would be off campus. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you, Representative Bandit. Did you have anything else you wanted to finish with?
I'm open for questions.
Okay. I actually don't see any yet.
Okay.
Senator West.
Thank you. My question is your experience at U of L. Did the university have their counsel present in that case?
Yes.
Okay.
but like not to represent me, to represent.
Sure, right, exactly. And so, Representative Banta, in the bill, there's the requirement that the students have the opportunity for counsel. It doesn't require them to have counsel, correct? But
Correct.
it's the opportunity for counsel. So I would suspect there'll be many cases where there'll be disciplinary hearings where they choose not to be represented by counsel, I would assume. Is that
I'm
fair?
sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Senator Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the bill. And students, thank you for your presentations. Help me understand the background on this, on why we are here today with this bill. Have there been increased numbers of processes that didn't work correctly, or why the urgency when we haven't had these restrictions or these parameters in past years?
Thank you for that question. When you say urgency, I kind of have to chuckle because I've been doing this for 3 years. I mean, the House sees me walk in and they're like rolling their eyes, like, here she comes again. She won't quit. What I did before I took this bill over, Representative Bratcher had it first. And he was just overloaded. And he said, 3 years ago, he said, hey, can you take this over for me? And I said, I'm going to have to research it. So I started trying to get information about how many suspensions, how many expulsions, how many hearings. And without naming any universities, I found that some were having over 1,000 hearings a year. And I was hearing outcomes from students that were not favorable. They felt like it was a David and Goliath thing, that, you know, they would go into a room and they had their judge, jury, and executioner right there, and they was going to make the decision about their entire educational career right then. I can't imagine how scared I would have been, and some of these kids were scared. To me, they're kids. I know that, you know, even if I have 3 grown children, and I would have never allowed them to do anything without an attorney. And I just think that by putting the provisions in there and securing that kids understand the process, it's not just going into a room and getting the edict. You actually they know the process. They know they can have somebody with them if they want. And I just think it would be a lot calmer for them and equitable.
We got a motion from Senator Schickel, second from Senator Turner. Go ahead, Senator Berg. You got a question? Good. You're fine. It's still timely.
I appreciate that because we do seem to have time today. Sir, could you give me an example of how this would apply to you? I mean, I heard a lot about your family, but give me something solid, something, thank you.
Absolutely. So I am in a fraternity at the University of Louisville, the Sigma Alpha Epsilon fraternity. Last year, during the COVID protocols, we were suspended interimly and threatened to be expelled from the university for violating COVID protocols. There was zero evidence against us. When we actually ended up having our hearing, we beat the suspension. But the University of Louisville dragged out the disciplinary hearing for an entire semester. Our interim suspension was an entire semester. The punishment that they placed on us was nothing, but an interim suspension lasted the entire semester, which would have been our punishment if we would have been found guilty of what we did or did not do. We didn't do it, but.
Follow up, sir. So the significance of your interim suspension was what?
The fact that we were not able to recruit a new member class, right? We were not able to hold on-campus events. We were not able to hold meetings. Everything that a fraternity is set to do to build brotherhood connections, we were not able to do at the University of Louisville.
One last follow-up. Because of your suspension or because of the COVID mandates?
Because of the interim suspension.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I'll note I didn't have anybody sign up to speak for or against the bill. President Stivers, last question.
Only one?
No, last questioner.
Okay.
We've got, I tell you what, we got 43 minutes.
Yeah, we were taking questions and votes last meeting long after that.
That's, and I'll hold the gavel open until we're all done.
All right. I appreciate this and the discussion because I've had several parents call me, and I know some, I think, how many years ago? 1984. So that's a long time ago, 30 some years ago. Academic ombudsman called in like 30 people to ask questions about was something said during the test. I wasn't the target, but there was somebody else who was. It was like, well, we didn't know what was going on then because they wanted to know if there was some type of cheating scandal. I don't know whatever happened because I wasn't involved. They questioned if I might have seen something. I didn't know anything about it. But if I had been at risk of being expelled, I probably would have called my dad or my brother and asked for counsel. But in these situations, were you all at risk of losing your access to the university?
So I can say that with my specific situation, I was not at risk of losing access to the university, right? But there are so many stories of other students that are. We have a student at UK who ran their Young Americans for Freedom chapter, who 3 months after a disciplinary hearing was held that he was not told about, was told that he could not register for his last semester senior year classes. And he had no clue that the discipline was being brought against him. There are
That
stories.
has wow factor.
Yes, there are stories like this across the Commonwealth, right? But it's hard to get students to stand up against their universities and come here and speak. There are tons and tons and tons of cases. I had a friend in my fraternity who was put on academic probation, meaning that anything that he did could have led to then a suspension or expulsion. He was told to join a Zoom meeting so that he could defend himself when he clicked on the link to try and join, or a Microsoft Teams meeting. They weren't there. An hour later, they said, sorry, you didn't show up. Here's your punishment. There are tons of these cases across the Commonwealth. And what we have is we have a government institution reigning supreme over students who pay. You know, President Stivers, you're an attorney. You don't have a right to be an attorney. But once you become a member of the Bar Association, you have certain rights as a member of the Bar Association. None of us have a right to be college students, but we should have rights to fight to stay as college students.
If I could, Mr. Chair. Young lady, I don't know what the circumstances of your situation were, and I don't know if you even want to get into them. You said somebody was harassing you, but you had to defend yourself before the university.
Yes, he was, a long story short, he was trying to justify his harassment by some things that I had done. And so he was making claims against me. I was making claims against him, although there was far more evidence against him. But yeah, I'm sure we both would have appreciated right to counsel in that situation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Seeing no further questions, a motion and second having been made on the bill, please, Mr. Secretary, call the roll.
Senator Berg.
No one's signed up. They're here.
I'm going to vote no and would like to thank both of you very, very much, all three of you, for coming forward here. You know, I'm an instructor, at the University of Louisville, and nobody from any of the colleges have come forward to me and said this is something we need. And in my experience with my medical students and residents, I've never once in my 40 years of working there been told by any of my students that they feel this is an issue. So I appreciate everything you all are doing. I can understand your perspective. I think I'm just a little too conservative for this bill, so thank you.
Senator Carroll.
I'd like to vote aye and explain my vote. Mr. Chairman, I'm a little puzzled as to why the universities aren't speaking today. I'd really like to know more about their concerns. I received one email from Murray State that was it. So I'm a little confused on that part of it, but I do vote aye.
Senator Kerr, Senator Neal, Senator Schickel,
Vote aye, and I'd like to explain.
Yes, sir.
my vote. Thank you. When I initially saw the bill, and I've seen it in past years, I know you've been working on it for a while, Representative. I really didn't think it was something I would support, but I've changed my mind. I think when you start writing those tuition checks, it changes your perspective on it a little bit. And also the other thing that changes my perspective on it over time is the fact that it just seems to me, and I may be wrong, but universities also have a political agenda sometimes. And if you're not in step with that political agenda, you're in trouble. So I appreciate you for bringing this forward. And it just seems like with so much money involved, and there should be some at least minimum due process to a student.
Senator Schroeder,
Aye.
President Stivers, Senator Turner,
I vote aye, and I'd like to explain my vote. Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
sir.
I really appreciate this bill being brought, and I'm apologizing to the kids of the state for not finding out sooner that there was no due process rights out there. I would have filed it and joined with you when I first got here, because I bet if you check with every university, they'll have some set of standard rules, they call them, but we don't have anything standard for every child in the state of Kentucky going to college. I think this is the best bill. I'm so proud to vote yes. Sorry I didn't jump in sooner. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator West,
Aye.
Senator Wheeler,
Mr. Chairman, explain my aye vote.
Yes, sir.
I join with my colleague, Senator from Harlan. I think this is a good bill. As a legal practitioner, I think that, sometimes these allegations on campus can potentially lead to other legal ramifications. And as a practicing attorney, I think it's very important that everyone be informed. I mean, I went to college once, and sometimes things can happen, and it's important that everyone knows their rights. And I guess to speak to the young man's position, I mean, he did suffer a punishment through his organization, in that his organization was suspended from their activities, even though there was no final adjudication made. So, I mean, although he, was not necessarily kicked off campus or anything, he clearly suffered an adverse action on the part of the university through his organization. So, I think that having an attorney that knows the process and has the ability to take appropriate action to mitigate any actions by a university in response to a disciplinary proceeding is very important. So, I proudly cast an aye vote.
Chairman Westerfield.
I vote aye. Bill passes with favorable expression on a vote of 8-1. Congratulations, Representative.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate you.
Thank you both. I appreciate your time. Seeing no other matter before the Judiciary Committee, motion made and seconded. We are adjourned.